Hey guys, Heavy Owns 45 here. Now, last week I told y'all about Orlando Jones playing a character named Anansi. Now, Anansi is, to me, one of the best characters on American Gods, and it's not just because of the color of his skin, but he is one of the most powerful characters that I believe that's on the show. Now, I'm gonna play a clip of a speech that he did from American Gods, and I hope that y'all like it. And I'm going to give my 2 cents on it. Um, with no further ado, here's the video.
I am not a god. In the sense that I can tolerate exploitation, oppression, and repression, my worshippers know freedom ain't free. They know the most potent weapon of control for the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. They know slavery is not a condition. Slavery is a cult. Human trafficking is a cult. Slavery got to rebrand like motherfucking the alt-right. And snatched. Another one gone. Every 30 seconds, another chocolate brown, caramel yellow, high yellow, red bone refugee girl with melanin in her skin gets snatched. Every 30 seconds. And to make matters worse, these dazzling new plantation owners built a pipeline to take our children from school to prison quicker than a cut can bleed. And the lucky ones go from school to the NFL, where they don't even let them niggas take a knee. They've been programmed from birth with shitty food options, contaminated drinking water, gun violence, police brutality, and trauma after trauma after trauma. PTSD, no therapy. Missing, no Amber Alert. Alone. Vulnerable. Snatched. Another one gone.
Now, there's a lot of stuff to unpack in that speech that I'm going to talk about. And just to start off, he keeps talking about snatch, another one gone. I didn't know that there were foreign women, women with, like as he said, melanin in their skin. They're constantly being snatched. They're refugees. It's not something that you hear in America being talked about. At present, all you hear on CNN, MSNBC, Fox, and all this stuff is Trump, the wall, the whole thing of, dark-skinned girls just suddenly being taken from wherever they're being taken away from is not publicized really where I'm at. Or maybe I'm just not listening, but it's something that, it's not something that you hear. That was, like I said, the first time I ever heard something like that. I have a friend on Facebook that talks about people making jokes about children being kidnapped. And that's not funny. It's not fun to say that somebody kidnaps somebody's child. And how childish do you have to be to think that it's funny to laugh at something like that, to make a joke about something like that? That's like, recently Kobe Bryant passed away. The day I found out Kobe Bryant passed away, there was a person on Facebook who had to put up there, you didn't know when he was alive, F Kobe Bryant. I'm like, F Kobe Bryant? What the hell are you talking about? Sure, I don't know him, but know him or not, that's somebody who died with his child, and lost his life with 8 other people. You can't mourn a person's death. You don't have to throw mud on somebody's life just because you didn't know. It's not like we're saying that he was a butthole or anything like that. He was a regular guy. He just happened to play basketball. So why can't you treat him like a regular guy? And I'm gonna start trying, and I'm getting off talking about Anansi's speech, so I'm gonna get back to that right now. Um, he brought up a good point that the greatest skill that a oppressor can do is change the mind of the oppressed. And that's literally what you have to think about. When you go back and look at Black history, and we're all celebrating Black History Month if you're of the darker complexion. And when you're dealing with that, it amazes me. And I've talked to other people about this, and we've talked about it, and I realized that it it's not a truly black culture whenever you think about it. When you hear about Russians, Scottish people, Japanese, Chinese, all these other people, they come from where they came from, and they bring whatever culture they had with them. You know, black people had their culture for African American people had their African culture beat out of them. And, the most famous way we always talk about it is when you look at the movie Roots. Roots was all about, slavery. But the one part that everybody remembers, and we make jokes about it, is the Kunta Kinte scene. To change Kunta Kinte's mind, they had to beat out his mind what his name is. They stole his name from him. The name that his mother and father gave him. And gave him a name that they were able to understand. And I guess that's the same way when you think of what we do age. To simplify talking to us, they instead of us butchering their names, they conform to us. And that's basically what black people did. We conformed. We lost all things. We talk about the African drums. We talk, when you talk about black people in America, we don't have everything that we have came from from the white culture. Once we came here, we started doing Christianity. And I've heard that we believed in, a monotheistic God, but the fact of the matter is that whichever way we did it, we had whatever we believed beaten out of us and brought into the idea of Christianity being the right religion. I don't get me wrong, I am a Christian. Even though I'm talking about Anansi right now, I am a Christian. I do believe in God. But that someone felt like they had to beat out of us our views and our ways of looking at life. Because when we look at stuff that happens in Africa now, we see the dancing, the chanting, the playing of drums. We that's Africa for us. When it comes to American foods, what we consider soul food. Soul food is, for the most part, food that was basically what we consider our normal soul food, was food that basically the master back in slave time didn't want. The master didn't want chitlin. He wanted food that was refined, And us as black people, we understand that there's some food that is so refined, but we're so conditioned to be happy with the little stuff. And it's not saying that eating food that is not that expensive is a bad thing, but it's just that when we came here, we had to learn how to feed our families off of the scraps. So we lost all our way of whatever food we would have learned how to make in Africa, like There's not many people that know how to do a true African dish. Everything we know in America is from what we consider our new black identity, which is like eating chitlins. I've never ate chitlins. Um, eating stuff, like I said, that other people wouldn't have ate. You know, with us being used to scraps, we made scraps the norm of what we eat. Um, that's when he says that, freedom ain't free. He's right. It's hard for someone to actually say that a black person is free of oppression. You know, no matter where you are, there's always someone trying to oppress you, trying to keep you down. I don't know if you agree with the whole thing about the knee, where you like they won't even let you take a knee. But the fact of the matter is, it is not unpatriotic to not agree with the government. But the way they treat the government right now, if you don't agree with them, you're wrong. Which is odd because isn't that the same reason that we have America today? The United States of America was created because people in America did not agree with what was going on in England and how England was treating the 13 original colonies. So because they disagreed with how they were being treated, they had a Tea Party, which was basically a revolt. And from that revolt, they started a war and they gained their freedom. In that same way, we had a civil war in America, which the reason why we had it is largely debated, whether it's like, Abraham Lincoln wanted to end slavery or he just was doing it to please kind of please the southern states and also keep favor in the northern states. It doesn't really matter which way it was. Because even after that, it did not lead to equality. When you look at how America saw black people, the 3/5 rule was still an account. A black person couldn't vote, but because of who you were, because of how many of your kind that your master had, he could have an extra vote based on how many slaves he had, which basically said that each slave was worth 3/5 of a person. So that's how they counted, so that you could have more vote. Your master could have more votes in an election. So you help that person become, bring someone in to leadership that they wanted. And like he said, there's so much drama in the world when it comes to that. Like I said, once Africans were brought to America, they had their beliefs beat out of them and had to conform to whatever new beliefs they had. And I sometimes go onto this site and I talk to random people. And one of these people that I met that has a Twitch account that me and her both enjoy talking to each other, or I like to believe so. Her name is Sweetbunnie. Sweetbunnie and me have talked about this. And the idea of me and her, I would say, don't agree on where the idea comes from. But there is no idea of a unified black race. Blacks are not unified. There are constant infighting because you have some who, as they used to say, some that are house niggas, kind of like how Steven in Django is, where they want to conform and be close to the white people so they don't go ahead and cozy up to them and try and do right so that they can get closer to what master wants. And, you know, basically brown nosing. And then you have others who's like, well, this is not right. Right is right and wrong is wrong. And they don't bend the knee. They not going to uh they're not going to go with the flow of what's going on. And that's the situation that you have in America. There's some people, they have decided that the way the world is now is what they are okay with. People are willing to conform to the idea of, hey, I don't have to work. I can just live in the projects. Um, it's There's no idea of actual unity between. Hence, why you always hear stories of black on black crime, because what keeping a person oppressed is also to make sure that you keep them divided. If you keep people divided, they can't come together to fight against you. And that was the problem back during um, the 50s and 60s when the civil rights movement, sorry, not movie, was going on. The movement was a time when blacks came together because they were trying to fight for each other. A moment of unity where everybody was going for the same goal. And they didn't care which way it went. It wasn't, it didn't matter if you were with Martin or Malcolm X. Both were trying to go for the same promised land. Both of them was trying to get to the top of the mountain. But they didn't make it. But even though before they passed away, they didn't make it to the top of the mountain, the fact of the matter is we still haven't made it to the top of the mountain. There's a few people that make it to the top, but those people who make it to the top, some of them don't even try to help to bring others to the top. When it was such a shock when, I want to say about a year or two ago, that millionaire, that black millionaire went to that school and he basically paid all them students debt. I heard a lot of people like, man, I wish I was in that class. Yeah, it, and because of that, he put them from being behind the eight ball. I know that I have several $1,000s of student debt from going to college, and they make sure to call me all the time. And the interest, it just feels like it always cleaned up on you. And a lot of people, they don't even want to go to school because they know that that's one of the problems. They know that if I go to school, I'm going to have to pay this money back. And it's a snowball effect. You go to school to try and get you a better job. If you can't get you a better job, now you have these people constantly hassling you over money. But because of what he did, he helped his fellow black people by going to the school. He paid all these students debt to where they have a clean slate. They can go get whatever job they want. Their credit score is probably so much better because they won't have student debt on it. That helped the rest of those black people, and probably would give them a better future than what they could have otherwise. It's the idea of, some of us will, we bend the knee, we'll do whatever we have to, but we always say you need to get in where you fit in. And not every place is meant for you. Not every place that you're going to fit in. But that doesn't mean that you should leave. A lot of people want to do the easy route. With all the stuff that we have where people are becoming wealthy, you don't need an education. You know, uh, what's the point? Because of people saying that, hey, I could just go ahead and be a pro basketball player, pro football player. I could be a rapper. Do I need an education to be in those things? Not really. But you don't see a lot of people wanting to be a doctor. And in a way, you see that a lot of times with black guys. Black women have recognized that, hey, there are a lot of guys out here that's not going to bring home the bacon. And so you're seeing a lot of black women going to school, and they are actually able to reach their goals, and they're able to become doctors, lawyers, nurses, whatever they want to do. And they're leaving the black man behind. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. You know, what is supposed to happen and what would be ideal is because those women are coming up, it motivates men because they see that these women are in place of power to try and do something to improve their standard. But some of them act so defeated, beat down, and they don't want to. And this, I feel like, is going with what Anansi said, because I don't want you to think that I'm just drifting off talking. But Anansi's whole idea is that, he doesn't believe that in the oppression of his people, because he is very proud of his African American black race, oh, African in general. It doesn't matter if you're from Africa or you were brought here on the boat. He believes that everyone that is worshippers of him should not be oppressed. He believes in the power of the dark skin. And I think that's the point you have to get out of this, that there is not a what we have now. America has done a lot of, people joke around about things that black America has done. We were the ones who created the ironing board, the gas mask, the traffic light. And some people joke about how, oh, that's why I'm late for work, because of that traffic light. But that's also why you probably able to make it to wherever you're going to, because it gives people, supposed to give people turns, like being able to do stuff without accidentally getting into a wreck. But that's besides the point. Black people have developed a lot of stuff in America. And it didn't just affect America, but it affected the rest of the world. And to say that, it took us losing ourselves, because a lot of times I go to churches for their Black History program, and for their Black History program, what they do is they bring out the washboard, they wear their dashikis, and they talk about black people picking cotton and stuff like that. But no one goes back to actual roots to where, talking about Africa. If we're talking about our black history, where's Africa in it? And where's the pride of saying that I came from Africa? A dashiki does not mean that you came from Africa. That's something that an African wears. But the ironing board, the washboard, all that stuff were showing that black people used to do hard work whenever they try to do stuff. And yeah, we have it simpler now. And yeah, it's good to remember what our grandparents and great grandparents had to use when they. But what about our true ancestors? You don't hear anyone talk about the actual where we came from, Africa. Africa is somewhat of a place that we've never gone to, and from what we hear from others that are not of our color, places that we don't want to go to. When the president calls it a crap hole nation, that is um that is disrespectful. And some people actually think that. Some people actually think that Africans still walking around in, loincloth with paint all over their face with the bone necklace. Africa's not like that. Do you think that what Trevor Noah was like before he came? No. They actually are, if they're not just stealing the dirt or anything like that. Now there are some places that I've heard of that are they're not terrible, but they're poor nation. I mean, poor cities and stuff there. But they're not that far behind around Africa like that. You know, but what happens to the black culture at that? Isn't what Anansi's saying about, these refugee girls being taken, the oppression of how people are just being controlled into believing that they're not enough. I I know I was listening to Chris Rock one time. I have a DVD of his called "Don't Kill the Messenger." And in that, I, in that he talks about how he on the block that he lives, at the time there were 4 black people that lived on his street. It was him, Mary J. Blige, Eddie Murphy, and Jay-Z. And for those, he does pretty good as a comedian. Eddie Murphy did real good as a comedian. Jay-Z is one of the best rappers there are out there, and Mary J. Blige is one of the best singers out there. And he said, "Do you know what my neighbor is? My neighbor is a dentist. He's not a not the best dentist in the world. He's just a regular pull your teeth dentist." And the comment that got to me that he said after that was, "See, a black person has to fly to make it to where a white person can just walk to. A black person has to fly to where a white person can walk to." Why is it that we have, and my dad told me this, for somebody going to college, you have to work twice as hard. And probably even in junior high and high school, you have to work twice as hard to make whatever your white counterpart has to do. And sometimes, and I would say that's the case, that you have to show that you're not just fighting for yourself, but you're fighting against the stigma that stereotype of people of black color black persuasion is not intelligent, that they don't know anything, and they don't know how to act, they don't know how to present themselves. And I've heard this from a person. He came in talking to me, and I spoke to him. I was like, "How you doing, sir? Nice to meet you." "Yes, sir, I understand that." And when I said that to him, he's like, "Y'all ain't don't." This was at the job I have now. He ain't don't stay here that long. He really knows how to talk about it. I can see him being real. He has a real professional stance to him. And he started telling me about how people talk where he works at. And he said when he talks to them, they start saying they ain't, and you know what I mean, and It's cool. And even with me talking on this, I'm not saying everything the right way. I'm not saying everything in a professional way. Why? Because I'm just talking to a bunch of people. This is just talk. If I was going for a job, I would be a lot more professional. I would try to be a little bit more, be more Obama than I would, I about to say Lil Wayne. Man, we'll go with Lil Wayne. You know, or how, like you would see in the jokes that Dave Chappelle did about Lil Jon. Back during the Chappelle show, he was like he started doing that yeah and all that stuff like Lil Jon would, but then all of a sudden when he was talking, he'd get real sophisticated and yeah, yes, I do mean to. I did mean to contact you about that, and you're like, those are two different people. But that's what a black person has to do. You have to know how to be professional when you have to be, and how to be ghetto when you need to be. And some people don't know how to do that. Some people don't know how to turn off their ghetto when they need to. And I'm slightly off of what he said, but it somewhat goes to everything in general. The idea of conforming is only supposed to be a show. You're not supposed to actually conform. When you look at the idea of Django Unchained, Django was, he in a way conformed. He dressed um like he would think somebody of somebody, I won't say like a white person would dress at one point, as a cowboy would dress. And he spoke at that point when he was acting like he was a black slaver. He acted like he saw a black slaver as doing, and he was basically bad mouthing and basically bringing down all the slaves that he saw there, even though he was on the same plight with them. And when it came down to it, when he got figured out and everything like that, he didn't just when he killed all them Australians, he didn't just sit there and like let himself out and leave. I'm pretty sure that those guys that were still in there, he gave them keys to get away. They were still trying to figure out at the end of the movie, who was that black man? They were still trying to figure it out. But the fact of the matter is, if you look at Django Unchained, the amount of people that Django freed with him just being pretending to be a persona, he never got away from his roots. He never got away from who he was. And that's what I would say happened in here. Once we lost Africa, we lost our idea of unity, and from that point on, we lost our way of being able to communicate with each other. At times we have moments where, as Black America, we come together to fight something. But after that fight's over with, we go back to our different corners. There's not a united front on just about anything nowadays. And we kind of fall into the situation where we let people see black people act the fool on shows like Love and Hip Hop, Hollywood, Atlanta, New York. We let people see those people act the fool, and because those people look like that, people think that we act like that. And it's not just in America, but I was watching a YouTube video talking about how people in Korea think of black people, and they think that what they see on TV, where we're loud and don't know how to talk to people, they think that all of us are like that, which makes it look bad when you have a professional person who is just so happen to be black go off to those areas, and they have to try and basically fight a stigma that somebody else has put onto TV about us. In some cases, you can say we put onto ourselves. All this is supposed to be for entertainment. But who are we entertaining? I probably ran my mouth too long about this. And you've probably, like, if they haven't calmed me down for the whole showing Anansi's speech from, if I haven't gotten this removed because of that, I hope that y'all enjoyed this. I really got real serious on this one. I'm gonna have to get real light on next time. So I'm gonna go ahead and catch you later.